Hey guys, so my name's Kathy Kellogg. I work on the intake team here at Support Inc. and just wanted to thank everybody for joining us for our case management meeting today. On this call with me, we have Brian Sluzar, who used to be a former case manager, and we also have Vince Johnson as well. Brian, did you want to take a moment just to introduce yourself?
Yes, thank you. So I'm Brian. I'm our Associate Director of Marketing here at Support Inc. As Kathy mentioned, before I came to Support Inc., I was also a case manager at Imagine in Boulder County. And then previously, my first 3 years at Support Inc., I worked as an Associate Director of Operations. So worked in residential for 3 years, case manager for around 3 years, and now new to marketing. So thanks everyone for coming. Looking forward to the conversations.
Thank you so much. And then we also have Vince joining us as well.
Hi, everyone. I'm Vince. I'm an Associate Director for Support Inc., working for our Northern Colorado region with a satellite office in Loveland. And before coming to Support Inc., I also worked as a case manager at Imagine.
Awesome. Thank you so much for joining us. So we'll go ahead and get started with our presentation soon. Basically, we just wanted to explain the services that we provide on the DD waiver, how does Support Inc. interact with case managers, and how can we do a better job in moving forward to make sure that people get the services we need. So we'll open up the discussion with a quick PowerPoint presentation, and then we can conclude with open dialogue after that. So let me see if I can share my screen. Okay, can you guys see this okay? Okay. All right, let me. Okay, so Support Inc. has been people helping people since 1989. One thing that we like to pride ourselves on is just the longevity. Our agency has been around for nearly 35 years now, thanks to Dennis Kirkman, who heard about a need in Denver. There was a small group of individuals that needed a new agency to help lead them when their former CEO was about to go out of state. And so that's how Support Inc. came into existence. Dennis Kirkman heard about a small group of individuals needing services, and so he just hit the ground running and was able to help them out right away. Okay, and then I'll kick it over to Brian for this slide.
Thank you, Kathy. Yeah, as Kathy mentioned, we've been around for over 30 years. Slogan of people helping people. I think it's a mantra that we all live by here at Support Inc. We really do find great staff, and we're just a bunch of people helping people. So some of the services that we provide on the DD waiver, strictly work with the DD waiver. So our residential services, we provide host home and respite, a variety of host home options all over the state, a large database of host homes. We also run a family caregiver program, which allows family caregivers to be employees, contractors, or there's an unpaid option as well. And then we also run independent apartment settings for individuals who want to live in their own apartments. Our day services, we have a base site day services in Aurora. That Aurora Day Services offers on-site and community options. And then we also offer community options all throughout the state. So we also offer SEC services throughout the state of Colorado. We have a clinical and behavioral services department, phenomenal group of clinicians at Support Inc. So yeah, we can provide any sort of behavioral services on the DD waiver. Some added services, we have an intake department, which not many processes have. So that intake department is solely dedicated to bringing individuals and services, family caregivers, system providers into DD waiver services. We also have a benefit specialist. She's amazing. Anything that's needed with rep payee services, Social Security, Medicaid, any of that benefit stuff, our benefit specialist is phenomenal. We have 2 registered nurses. Again, they're both phenomenal, and just a great nursing department. So we have some great medical coordinators under those 2 registered nurses. Something that's another added service of ours is small caseload sizes. So our residential team, we don't have high caseload sizes. Residential coordinators don't carry caseloads of 20. We keep those caseloads to 10 to 15. And then we also started apartment-specific coordinators, which is a great service that we recently offered. I think as many of us know, it can be difficult to serve individuals in apartments. whether that be compliance or just coming with higher needs, grocery shopping, medical appointments, things like that. So in addition to residential coordinators, we now have apartment-specific coordinators that solely work with individuals who live in their own apartments. Just to touch on our kind of creativity and uniqueness a little more, so our backpack program, run by one of our senior residential coordinators, Rich, I believe he's on here today. Backpack's just a phenomenal program. It really is funded through supporting. Someone say something? Sorry. So Backpack is funded through Support Inc. and then some grants as well. But yeah, it really allows individuals to do kind of things outside of waiver services. So things like camping trips. I know they went to the sand dunes a couple years ago, Cherokee Reservoir. In the past, they've gone to Las Vegas, sporting events, things like that. Again, really a low cost to individuals and families and services. And it's a great program that is through Support Inc. That allows individuals to do fun things out in the community that they may not be offered in traditional day programs. Also paid vacations, vacations for individuals and services. So if they want to go somewhere, we always help, get them to Disney World or get them to Thailand, for instance. Any vacations that our individuals are interested in, we highly encourage that. We recently started a caregiver support group, which is done virtually. We'll probably do some in-persons as well, so a blend, but really just a group of like-minded caregivers, family caregivers, host and providers that get together once a month just to share resources, share struggles, things like that. Really a true support group. In addition to that, we offer monthly town halls. Our operations team, our residential team runs those town halls. Again, just a great opportunity for family caregivers, individuals and services, host and providers to get together, hear what's going on in residential, what's going on in the industry, talk with the residential team. Startup funds is another good one. So whenever family caregivers come into services, individuals and services, come into DD waiver services, some of them have been waiting on wait lists for years, decades. So we do offer startup funds to kind of help them with whatever they may need, because it could take some time for that DD waiver funding to kick in. So startup fund is just a good way to kind of help families out, help individuals out as they enroll in the DD waiver.
That all sounds good, and thanks so much for sharing. Yeah, I just wanted to point out that the main difference with our town hall and the family caregiver groups is that you're more likely to hear the organizational updates when it comes to the town halls. So you're going to hear from our nursing department, our vice president of operations, our finance department. The town halls are more specific to different groups that we serve in the agency. So we have a family caregiver town hall that's every other month. And then the host home provider town halls are going to be in those in between months. And so we do encourage the people that we work with to attend those when they can, so that you can receive the organizational updates. And when it comes to the caregiver support group, that is where we encourage both parties to get together. So the family caregivers and the host home providers, just to see how we can provide more support to you guys as you're working with the individuals that we serve. So the supporting difference, we just wanted to briefly touch on this, especially if there's any new case managers that have joined us today, maybe someone on here that's not as familiar with the services that we combine, that we have. So Cindy and Kristen and I have a combined 47 years of experience. So Cindy's been with the agency for 22 years. Kristen's been here for 21 years, and I've been here for almost 6. There's not a lot that we haven't seen before, and there's not a lot that we would shy away from. And so we do welcome unique situations, and any person that we're able to help, we're certainly willing to take a look and see how we can help with that situation. One thing we pride ourselves on is just that fast response to referrals. So with us having our own intake mailbox and 3 of us working the referrals all day, we do try to get back to case managers, ideally within an hour or so, just to express our interest in working with that person and their family. The large provider pool that we have for host homes is huge, I would say. At any given time, we have approximately 120 host homes just waiting to find someone. Now, granted, it can be difficult at times when you have a very specific area like Boulder, for instance, and maybe someone needs a home with wheelchair accessibility. And sometimes when those needs get very specific, it can take a while to find someone. But if we don't have someone available right away, we're definitely willing to recruit or do whatever it takes to find that person the perfect match. Also, we have a very methodical vetting process. And so, of course, we're going to start with an application, background checks, paperwork, and things like that. But we also really want to get to know our providers and what are their hobbies and interests? What sort of foods do they like to eat? What sort of person would they match well with? And so we really do have a thorough interviewing process when it comes to our host home providers to ensure a long-term match and that person's success in the home. We also offer personalized budgets. And so we have a really nice spreadsheet for family caregivers that want to be an employee, whether that is full-time and they have access to our 401k or just part-time. We're willing to work with you in whatever sort of needs you may have, whether you need benefits or not. And then we also offer the independent contractor route as well. So I know some families we work with already have benefits. They don't really want to take the employee route. They would rather be a contracted worker, and that's totally something that we can do as well. We currently have 80 families utilizing family caregiver services with us. And so I tell people that's basically the bread and butter of what we do. We absolutely love working with families and trying to help them in whatever way we can. We're willing to work with case managers and try to brainstorm to help with whatever needs they have at the time. And we're also willing to help newer and existing case management employees.
That's how you do it.
So I know with the pandemic, there's been some turnover across the industry with PASAs and case management agencies alike. And so we totally understand that sometimes it's difficult and time consuming to train newer and existing case managers. And so we always tell people, even though we're not a case management entity, if there's any questions we can answer, anything we can help you with, we're always more than willing to do so.
I don't want you to put it. And
if there's someone talking that could put themselves on mute, that'd be great while I'm doing this presentation. Thank you. So next we have our host home flyers. And so this is just an example of someone that we have with us right now. So we have a provider located in Aurora. This person has a home that is wheelchair accessible. It's a ranch with 6 bedrooms and 2 bathrooms. One thing we were kind of hoping to discuss towards the end of this presentation is, would it be helpful for case management to see these flyers ahead of time? Would it be helpful if maybe we sent you 3 to 5 provider options in your area, and then you can tell us if you're struggling to find someone to serve the person on your caseload? So we really do like sending out these host home flyers when we can and just seeing if there's a match out there to be made. As you'll see, we usually have the provider name at the top, their address, the major cross streets of the home. I think it's important to know who's in the home, since some individuals might prefer a home with kids or not. Maybe they would like a home with pets or not. And then we also want to talk about family activities, things that they like to cook and eat. And then just a brief explanation of that host home provider's experience. So I can see Jennifer's raised her hand.
Hey, first off, happy Valentine's Day. Have to say that out loud. Second off, I really found it helpful that you listen to, with this client that we're working on together, how you listen to needs, wants, and her concerns, and you kind of gathered a whole bunch of options and sent out the flyers. The flyers really do help, because then I can go through it even if it's over the phone. And I just wanted to give you that feedback.
Okay. Yeah, thank you so much. We're definitely hoping we can find something good for her, and definitely looking forward to meeting her tomorrow. Yeah, if there's anything that we can do to be proactive with flyers in the future, like, we're definitely receptive to that feedback as well. Okay, so now I'm going to kick it over to Vince for this slide.
Hi, everyone. My name is Vince. I previously stated that I am a current residential associate director with Support Inc., but I was previously a case manager with Imagine, and just wanted to take some time today to talk about a few things I wish I had known when I was a case manager that I have now since learned being with Support Inc. So to tell that, I want to talk about family caregiver flexibility in terms of compensation And to start, I want to tell a story. So when I was a case manager, one of my clients was offered a spot from the DD waiver wait list. So I reached out to the client and their mom, who was their legal guardian, and informed them that their spot on the wait list had come up. We scheduled a meeting to talk about the DD waiver and most notably what it offers, which is residential services. So mom had been taking care of her son for quite some time and presumably would have continued as a family caregiver. So when we talked more about the family caregiver position and DD waiver services and residential services, mom and guardian was no longer interested in it because she was worried that her getting paid would disrupt her benefits. So we understand a lot of different individuals. Everyone has a different financial situation, whether they have a part-time job or are receiving Social Security benefits, Medicaid, a VA benefit. So mom didn't want any compensation to disrupt her current benefit. So I asked, can we get to a meet and greet with some of these agencies? A lot have shown interest in the request for proposal, but mom and guardian really wasn't interested, and it kind of ended there. So when I moved on to Support Inc., I quickly found out that with family caregivers, we have a ton of flexibility in terms of compensation. So like Kathy and Brian spoke on earlier, we have two different options for family caregivers. You can be an independent contractor. So you have your allocated amount of funds that just goes directly to you, and as you're paid the entire lump sum. As an employee, you can elect to have benefits as well as having a family caregiver budget. So there's an allotted amount of money set aside for that budget, and family caregivers can spend that amount of money however they want. So in the case with the mom and guardian, she could have elected to be completely unpaid and left the entire budget for reimbursements. So reimbursements, we can reimburse really anything that benefits the individual. So examples of that can be rent, utilities, vacations, Brian spoke on earlier. Within the last 6 months, I had a family send a reimbursement for a home renovation to create a man cave for their son. Or it could be a good healthy split where the family caregiver can receive compensation of about half the allotted funds and half still saving for reimbursements. Some other things are when families travel, they may need a wheelchair accessible van rental. We've reimbursed those as well. So basically anything that benefits the individual, and we understand that it could also benefit other people in the household as well. But just kind of want to be as flexible as we can with those reimbursements and compensation for family caregivers. The second thing I wish I would have known is, as a case manager, we heard a lot from residential agencies that there weren't a lot of host homes available within a residential agency and not a lot of respite providers within that residential agency. When I moved over to Support Inc., like Kathy was stating, we have a lot of host homes available, and it really makes it easy if families are open to potentially expanding their geographic range for host homes. We have a lot of available homes within the Front Range, and with that come a lot of respite providers available as well. So we have a lot of host home providers that have permanent placements and then also have an open room or two available for respite providers. So just kind of wanted to talk about the things that I wish I had known when I was a case manager, and happy to pass that along to you all now.
Thank you so much, Vince. All right, that concludes our presentation. So we just kind of wanted to keep the presentation piece short so we could open up to any questions, comments, any concerns or anything like that, you guys are welcome to ask any questions you may have.
I was hoping you guys could explain the process from start to finish. I think that would be helpful for people who are kind of new to the system, who don't understand how that works. Like how, how does somebody get services all the way to like getting the RFP and then getting residential services? I think that would be helpful.
Sounds good. So yeah, typically the request for proposal starts with the CCB, which is going to be your community center board. From what I understand, the average wait for a family is 8 years to get on the DD waiver. So some families come to us from CES, the child services waiver, and other people might get an emergency slot just depending on their need. But at some point an RFP goes out and that's a request for proposal. And then you have a bunch of agencies such as Support Inc. Those are going to be your PASAs. And we will respond to the RFP and say, hey, we're interested in serving this person. And so typically the CCB will give you a timeline to respond. So I think it's typically about 5 days or so. And then they gather all those responses, put them together, and then somehow send those over to the family. So that piece I'm unclear on since I've never worked for a CCB before. We send attachments and things like that just to show that the family, like these are the services we provide, but we're not sure if those attachments are forwarded or not. And then from there, I just know that families might select a handful of agencies and interview them and then go from there. You can go ahead, Jennifer.
Okay, I was just going to say, we have a form, like an RFP form that we fill out and I send it to you guys. We are trying to we send it to the local providers first, just to see, because you kind of get first come, first serve, because they're local, they can stay here. Then we send out an email individually for RFP to a list that we have of providers.
Awesome. That's really good insight. Thank you for sharing. I know, I feel like services may or may not be a little more limited on the Eastern Plains, and we do serve about a dozen or so individuals out there. And we greatly appreciate working with you guys out in the Sterling area, Paxton, all that. So it's fun to go out there when we're able to do so.
We also wonder if the family gets a list of agencies, if it's alphabetical, because support is down the list because of our S. So I was just curious, Jennifer, is your list alphabetical?
So the list is alphabetical, but I actually sit down with the client and I kind of go through, oh, you want a host home, and it's organized by who has the host home, who has day program. And then I kind of just pull all of those RFPs and then just send them out to everybody. And then once I get offer back, what I do is I call up the client, or I meet with them and then just let them kind of go through their options. They can call, they can talk to them. Like she said, we are having a walkthrough on Thursday. So a touring of the house. So it just kind of depends on the client and what they want.
Sounds good. Thank you for sharing that. And then Brandy said it all depends on your case manager. In my experience as a family caregiver, was there anything you wanted to elaborate on that? If not, that's okay.
No, if you guys definitely have questions on what, kind of our procedure is, I'm happy to answer questions, because it's nice to bounce ideas off of each other to get services going for these clients.
Yeah, I think it's all helpful to know, and it makes sense based on the individual services, based on the case manager. It could all be very different. I think what would be most important to us is getting those meet and greets. similar to what you're talking about, Jennifer. I think that's just extremely helpful for us, because every individual, every family is so different. So I think when we respond or when someone's searching, it's just extremely important for us to kind of get in front of them, to hear their needs, to hear what they want. And that helps us a ton identify, a great host home provider match, or find that personalized budget, which helps the individual, the family, things like that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, one of the reasons I wanted to have this webinar was just to see how can we be a better help to case managers. So I know that there's multiple case managers on here from different CCBs, and each area tends to do things so differently, but we are receptive to feedback. If there's anything we could be doing better on our end, like, we're certainly happy to hear that too. Erica, you ask a great question, and I'm happy to see you on here. We were actually just talking to Brian Fairstead about this morning. And so just having individuals in services with dual diagnosis, those are some of the more challenging ones to serve. We've definitely taken a look at our list of host home providers recently and seeing how can we help those individuals. I do think the substance use with unlimited alone time is one of the hardest ones for us to serve, just because they can come and go as they please, and they have the right to do that. But then you're also kind of worried about what are they doing when they're out on their own in the community, and hoping that their health and safety is in check. So that is definitely something that we are trying to tackle in the near future, is just taking a closer look at those referrals. How can we help those people? How can we get more of our host home providers trained up in time to take referrals like that? Because you're right, it is really hard to find homes for those individuals, and it's definitely a need that we're noticing as well.
Yeah, I think that's well said, Kathy and Erica. I think it's a huge need that we're all seeing in the field. Lack of regional centers kind of taking those individuals. So it is an area of focus of ours. I just saw Brian Potts back on. I know it's a major focus of his, because we do see that need. I think the whole industry sees it. So I don't know if you want to add to Brian.
Yeah, I can talk about this for an hour. I think it's interesting with, if there are case managers in the room, one of the things that we track is every single referral that comes to us, right? So we have a tremendous amount of data that shows what's coming through and what are we declining as Support Inc. We are, like I think you said in one of the slides, Kathy, a PASA that wants to take, some risks on people that kind of need that high-end help. There aren't many things we haven't seen before. That being said, I think like the largest number of behavioral referrals were sent out this past year in Cindy's 22 years of being an intake representative, right? So we have lots of people, and I think of these individuals in different kinds of ways. But I think, Erica, specifically to your point, like sort of high functioning individuals with mental health diagnoses, also with substance abuse and some other difficult behaviors. And as we know, and as you know, those people can burn through host homes. They can be sitting in emergency rooms. They can be draining resources from emergency response, police, emergency departments, and the like. And we've seen that happen quite a bit. And so recently it was my job to look at those referrals and say, right, what can Support Inc. do here? And I kind of broke it down into 3 categories. The first of which is, there's some that we just need to do better at taking more risks on. Those are folks that kind of exist in our current structures. We know they can be disruptive to teams. We want to minimize the amount of risks that we take, because we know, if you've ever worked anywhere like Support Inc., you have too many highly acute individuals on your caseload, it can be disruptive to that individual, the team, and the organization as a whole. And I know that pushes back into case management. When you have somebody sitting at an ER, a PASA gives notice and there's nowhere for them to go. One of the big issues around this, in my opinion, is COVID, the DSP, direct care staffing crisis, and the lack of admissions to regional centers over the course of the past 2 years. It's been a difficult journey for folks that run 24/7 facilities, which include regional centers, which include us deploying people to host homes to provide crisis response and support, kind of keep them contained. So I think as a state, we have to kind of work towards solutions to get all of our levels of care open and operating. With that being said, Support Inc. does pride itself on doing our best to get providers trained. We had a long conversation this morning about some tracks that we could get, for, behavior therapist training, reimbursements for that, having retainers on people's homes and rooms so that we can have respite when we need it, so we don't have to be doing emergency department respite, which nobody likes, and potentially building some programs around supporting individuals in some different ways. So we are looking at that, and we recognize that as a sort of system-wide problem that requires addressing. And it's just good to hear people, it's good to hear comments like that, because sometimes it feels like we're alone with our struggle, where I imagine all of us are struggling with that very thing.
This is Tony Sears over at Advocacy Denver. I agree with everything you're saying, but if you want suggestions on developing a program, it's for high functioning autism. They don't fit in our regular day programs. It takes a lot of time, but those are the folks that I have seen in the last 5-10 years that fall through the cracks. There's no real good resources out there. That's all I have to say.
Thanks, Tony. Yeah.
I've enjoyed all your webinars. I just wish you would, it would be mandatory for resource coordinators at Rocky Mountain Human Services to learn about good agencies. They have no idea who Support Inc. is, where I know me and Cindy, we come from that old school, and you guys pride yourself on some reputations, right? So, but they have no idea when I mention Support Inc. Especially the new intake folks, since they've gone to the new intake procedure. Thank you.
Yeah, I definitely share that concern as well. And that was one of the main reasons we wanted to host this webinar, just hoping to catch the attention of some newer case managers, because we definitely noticed some turnover in the field. And having worked in this field for the last 7 years, you do start to see a lot of new names these last 6 months. And so we're trying to build those relationships as often as we can, ultimately to ensure that people are in services are getting the help that they need.
Yeah, thanks, Tony. I would love to take this on the road. So, any ways that we can do that, I think is a good thing. Also, high functioning autism, absolutely. One more thing I would mention, just because I say this in every time I can, I think one thing that maybe is missing in our continuum of care is when we do have sort of mental health crises, our individuals don't really fit into classic psychiatric institutions, and they tend to get discharged pretty quickly. And that is not good for anybody when we have high symptomology, sitting in an emergency room for a given amount of time and then going back to an environment that's clearly not prepared for it. For those regional centers, I think I saw at least one person on here from there, and talk to your supervisor about it. What I think would be helpful would be short-term residential, kind of regional center, developmentally delayed help, which would look like if we were struggling with someone, say in a host home with some extreme behaviors. Now, maybe they've been there for a while, and oftentimes, we have people in host homes that have been in host homes longer than they ever have in their life. Sometimes that's 6 months, sometimes that's a year. But if we could get them into a place where we could stabilize on medication, provide a break to let those symptoms that they're presenting subside. And sometimes that takes anywhere from 24 hours to 72 hours, probably not much longer than a week. We would take them back without having to give notice. But we do need one more layer of care. And I think I've seen it work pretty well in the youth mental health system. We just used to call it short-term residential. And it's not like going back to the regional center for 2 years. It's just quick temporary respite so that they can come back to us. We can get some resources deployed, some things in place. They can get stable on medication, and then we can keep them from kind of repeating that regional center cycle. I always like to say that for anybody that's listening, and I think it could be a real benefit to some of those high behavioral individuals that we see that are out there.
Well, believe it or not, Wheat Ridge Regional Center is supposed to be what you just described, short term. They do not call themselves long-term, although we know there's long-term, right? But to get someone admitted, we have to exhaust all community resources, which is the big, we know we've done all that and they still reject it. And they'll even reject it on, Tony, we're not a mental health center. You need to go to Fort Logan. It's a mental health situation, not an IDD situation. So it's becoming harder and harder to get someone into there.
Yeah, thanks for that feedback as well. Yeah. It would be it would be nice, and I think it could be really impactful, specifically for that high intensity population. You know, one of the things I also heard, and sorry if hopefully this is okay, Kathy, but you know, we have a lot of resources that got released for new waiver slots, and from my understanding, HCPUF kind of slowed that to some degree. And you know, we can't see through the lenses of case management and how those referrals are coming out. But one of the reasons that I heard was that there wasn't enough community placements. And I think that's deceptive, because I think that is true for some high behavioral individuals, high functioning autism individuals, but not necessarily true for a whole other bunch that are looking to get on the waiver, that don't necessarily require some extra specialized host home provider training. I think that's kind of a shame that there's folks that are on the waiting list that could be getting out and into services, but they're kind of blocked by this high behavioral roadblock that we've kind of run into. So, you know, thinking differently between those two things, I think is important for us to be able to do, because we have to solve a couple of problems, but we also want to get people the help that they need, where we have plenty of people that could just take them tomorrow.
Yeah, sorry, go ahead, Kathy.
No, you go ahead.
We all say all really good conversations. Definitely a huge need right now. I'd be interested to hear from Tony or other case managers. Similar to your question, Tony, how can we get our information kind of out there better to case management agencies, better to families? You know, we focused on our website and, you know, attending any events we can offered by CCBs and case management agencies. Any kind of thoughts and ideas are highly appreciated, how we can kind of get our information, our great services out there to people.
I don't have the magic bullet. All I can tell you is, since we switched to this single entry point, you know what it takes an average person now. I just had a conversation yesterday with one of the intakes. It's taken, we've had 2 clients, or I've had 2 clients like things. So it has taken over a year to get them eligible. Yesterday was the first meeting before they get an active resource coordinator. So the process is, call it COVID, call it remote. I don't know but it's been a big burden just to get anybody. The eligibility process is now taking over 12 months, which is ridiculous. It shouldn't be that way. And yeah, and what was your other question? I'm sorry.
No, I think that was helpful. That kind of gets to it. Like you said, I don't think there is a magic bullet. So we'll keep trying different methods.
Oh, I know what it is. Yeah, advocates like me who have worked with supporting. I mean, I still, and maybe correct me if I'm wrong. I still, medically fragile folks, you're one of the first agencies I tell folks about. You built your reputation on that years ago, and that's what I'm still going with. Sorry. They have no idea. When I mention, Support Inc. is a great agency that has some great medical fragile folks that know how to support and serve medically fragile. The intake people need training on agencies, and I know, we don't have the authority to tell them. You don't have the authority to tell them. So I think we're seeing a big learning curve. The matching is not happening with agencies.
Yeah, that's kind of been my point in recent months, is like, how can we do a better job of marketing and just getting our name out there so that people know that we are a resource to tap into when it's needed, for sure.
Yeah, all well said. And maybe like advocacy groups in the counties is a good way to go as well. Trying to target people like you, Tony. Because we do focus a lot on CCBs and other areas, which is obviously important as well. But maybe a stronger focus on advocacy groups as well could be really beneficial, since you oftentimes help those individuals and families.
I see we also had a question about 10 minutes ago. As a family caregiver, I'm curious, how do you handle situations with host home providers, individuals and services having pets, using drugs and alcohol? So first, I would say that it definitely goes back to the match and the host home provider just being aware of the needs and, hey, this is where this person is at this time. Maybe there's some drug use issues going on. Maybe they have a dog. For what it's worth, we frequently see referrals for people that are not using drugs that do have pets. And so we have quite a few host homes that are open to accepting cats and dogs. And of course, doing several meet and greets to make sure it's a good fit in case there's any pets in the home. Brian, with you being on ops, did you maybe just want to speak to what that looks like if there's any drug issues in the home afterwards with the host home provider?
I think like you said, Kathy, it really just all depends on the provider, that match. Drugs and alcohol can be tricky. Now, obviously, if you're kind of educating on the risks of drugs and alcohol, it just really depends on the situation. Yeah, do we want to get that person off drugs and alcohols? How does it look? Obviously, their health and safety is most important. So I think it just really all depends on that match. And yeah, the individual and what they need. But
yeah, because it is a person's right to do those things. So if someone's just having a beer a day, I mean, there's only so much you can do. Our hands as an agency are tied when the severity is not too extreme. People do have the right to smoke marijuana when they're 21 and it goes by the state rules. And they do have the right to drink alcohol as well. So I think a big part of that is just being very transparent with the host home provider and just giving them a heads up to see if they're well equipped to handle a situation like that. And then if so, does the person in services want to live with that person? And to what extent do they want to get off of the drugs and alcohol? So really, we just try to take a person-centered approach as we can, and each case is going to be just a case-by-case basis. So.
Yeah, and just like any of us, doing things in a safe, responsible way, that's most important. And yeah, I've seen like host home providers that are fine with the individual smoking outside, things like that. So similar to like having a roommate, just being respectful of people's rights and what you kind of want in the house.
Right. And what is the host home provider receptive to working with as well? I received some private feedback that I am allowed to copy and paste. Let's see here. So workshop for benefits education, that's something I would like to learn more about as well. This person heard that there's a $2,000 allowance for parent education. That would be cool to look into. That's new to me. Building community outreach. Okay. And then a program to start our young adults to do a trial in a group or a host home for upcoming family respite needs. Yeah. Yeah, so I mean, I think we're definitely open to trial runs for respite in general. So we do serve adults that are 18 and over. We do not work with anyone on adolescent or child waivers, but we are definitely open to having those respite trial runs before we just have someone go to someone's house for a weekend. Yeah. And then also this person's now saying more social activities, pickleball. I love pickleball. That's one sport I actually play. And so, yeah, we'd be open to that. We do have our 4 events each year. Typically, we have a spring fling when COVID allows. And then we also have our company picnic in July. And then we have our Halloween party in October and then a holiday party in December. But as time allows and as we can work these things out with our backpack committee, we're definitely willing to have more events when we're able to staff them for sure. So. One thing I wanted to ask with case management, so an idea that we've been kicking around is a case management newsletter. I didn't know if you guys would be interested in something like that. Is that something worth reading? Or if we were to send you guys our flyers maybe on a monthly basis or something like that, would that be helpful on your end to help establish a match? I just wasn't sure if anybody has feedback.
Maybe while we wait for feedback. Also, we work hard to just double check with the case managers on the referral that we accepted and are they still looking, and, you know, just trying to make sure that, you know, we're here for you, but we don't want to overdo it. We don't want to bother you or turn our relationship upside down because we keep emailing and trying to check in. So if you have any feedback of like how often you would like to be contacted, or is once a week too much, just feel free to put it in the chat. or call us, email us anytime with that input.
Yeah, that's something we definitely wonder. I know for me personally, I was checking on referrals weekly and then it felt like too much. So we don't want to be a burden to you guys asking, hey, where do things stand with this RFP? But also we don't want to be forgotten about either if families are being sent options, and we're just wanting to make sure we're in that loop too. So if anybody has feedback on how often we respond to referrals, you can put that in the chat. That would be helpful. And if you guys feel like a newsletter would be helpful, we're happy to send you guys our host home flyers in your catchment area, maybe like on a monthly or a quarterly basis. So. When it comes to a case management newsletter, me and Brian would do that. So the RPCs don't got to worry about that piece. We would take care of that. So if you want to, you could forward it. Maybe you have someone on your list that we're not aware of, but it would definitely be something we would manage, and then you could pass it along to case managers as needed as well. So thanks, Lauren. And thanks, Vicki, saying newsletters and flyers would be helpful. Okay. Yeah, so maybe we'll just start doing that soon if nobody's against it. Don't think it would hurt anything. One of my last questions I just wanted to ask for case managers on here is if there's anything we could be doing better. I know helping collect paperwork can be a challenge sometimes, trying to make sure that families get the PMIP before enrollment. That's a huge one. If there's anything else that you guys have feedback on that would help your jobs be easier, we're welcome to reading that in the chat as well. All right, well, it sounds like everything's running super smooth, so I have nothing else to say. No, I'm kidding. All right, well, we just wanted this to be an open forum for communication. So if anybody else has anything else to contribute, you're welcome to chime in, whether you're a case manager, family caregiver, host home provider. I know we have a mix of people on here, so we're definitely receptive to feedback. Oh yeah, it would be nice. Okay. Someone just wrote me privately and said it would be nice to have a list with an extension to contact the correct person at your agency. I agree. That's definitely something we can add to our to-do list, and I'll write that down.
So many names of people that I haven't seen or talked to in a while, and I just thank you all for joining us today. It's a great turnout. Thank you.
Yeah, for sure. If nobody has anything else, then we can just go ahead and wrap it up. So one last chance to contribute whatever you feel like you need to say. I just want to thank everyone for joining us on here. We really do want to work better with CCBs in the future. I know different things change all the time. Sometimes there's a year where we have a lot of waiver slots. Sometimes there's not. Big changes in the field could be coming soon. So we just want to continue to work well with CCBs just to make sure that individuals get the supports that they need. So yeah. And then someone asked, will the contact list be on your website? Yes. So once we get that pulled together, we can definitely put that on the website to share with everyone. All right.